you in. You look great. Looks like a lovely day at the EnviroHouse.
Okay. I'm Janda Wolfmer. I'm the EnviroHouse coordinator, and welcome to our inaugural virtual workshop. We expect to bring several more of these in the next few months until we're able to safely convene again at the EnviroHouse. And in lieu of, for those of you that have attended workshops, when you've seen, when you've seen, been to our workshops and you've had the evaluation handed out to you, since I can't do that now, we will have polling questions throughout, and Leah will explain that to you. Sarah, who you've sort of met, Sarah Sweet from Tacoma Power, will be doing the presentation. She is the Energy Research and Development Program Manager at Tacoma Power. And we're really happy to have you here and hope to see you again in future ones. So thank you. And Leah, back to you.
All right. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Janda. Like I said, now that we've got a few more folks on, I'm going to go over some of the technical logistics of how Zoom works. I know for us City of Tacoma and TPU employees, over the last couple of months, we've all become very familiar with using virtual platforms. But if this is your first experience using Zoom or any other kind of virtual platform, I'm just going to go quickly over how it works. So obviously you can see the three of us, at least I hope you can see the three of us and hear the three of us. In a moment, Sarah's going to be sharing her screen with you, so she'll have a kind of a presentation she's going to go through. Like Janda mentioned, occasionally through the presentation, we're going to be putting a poll, an interactive poll up on the screen. Now, to show you how that poll works, I'm going to give you a little test poll right now. This is just to show you how these polls work, what they're going to look like, and I will show you now on your screens. Please take this very important poll that is going to be instrumental in a lot of the work we're doing. How do you take your coffee? All right, it looks like it's working for folks. We've got about half of everybody has voted. This is what the poll is going to look like later in the presentation. Just wanted to show everybody how it works and give you a little experience. All right.
So how does everyone take their coffee?
I will show you what's one of the other features of this poll. So we've got about 86% of you responding. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And wow. Tea drinkers abound in this group. I will share with you. Now you can see on your screen the poll results, a close second of just black coffee, but I have to say I'm in the tea drinker camp as well. So that little poll was just an example to show you how the polling is going to look throughout the presentation, and glad to see it work for everybody. We do have an option for questions and answers throughout the presentation. So you'll notice if you hover over your screen, down at the bottom, there should be a Q&A button. If you click that Q&A button, I will be monitoring that throughout the presentation, and I'll periodically interrupt Sarah to ask questions in real time. And then if for some reason we get a question on the Q&A that's not answered live, we do have your contact information, and we'll be able to follow up with you after the presentation to answer any questions that you might have. And then of course, the last feature I want to mention is the chat. Again, I talked about it at the beginning, but if you're just joining us here in the last few minutes, please use the chat feature to have conversation, have engaging dialogue through this presentation, ask questions. I will also be monitoring the chat, so if there's a question that comes up in there that is for Sarah, then I'll of course bring that up. I'll also do my best to copy and paste some links in real time as Sarah is talking to them. If there's a specific web page that she references, you know, I might throw a link in there. The links in chat in Zoom, unfortunately, are not clickable, but you can copy and paste them into your browser. The very last thing that I promise I'll mention before we get rolling down the road, again, trying to insert some kind of electricity or vehicle pun there, didn't quite work. But the last thing that I'll mention is this webinar and workshop is being recorded. So if you missed something, if you want to share it with a friend, or if you just want to reference a piece of information later, it is being recorded. We will also be sending a transcript of the chat to everyone via email. So again, if you miss a reference or a question that somebody mentions in there, you'll have access to it afterwards, along with a whole mess of other information, everything you could want to know about EVs. So if you have technical issues or questions throughout, please put them in the chat. But beyond that, I think we will go ahead and get started. I'll hand it over to Sarah to more formally introduce herself, and we'll get going.
All right, thank you so much for that. Now I'm really curious what the correlation is between people interested in EVs and tea drinkers, because that was fascinating results to me. There's got to be something there. We have to do some good research on that. So my name is Sarah Sweet, and as was mentioned, I work for Tacoma Power and the Energy Research and Development Group, primarily on, well, pretty much 100% now on electric vehicle projects. I've been with Tacoma Power for just shy of 5 years now. And to give you an idea of my background, I have been in the energy area, interested in environmental space for a long time. Actually, I have my master's in environmental studies, so from Evergreen State College. So I do like to say I'm a secret hippie. So this definitely goes hand in hand with my interests and passions and work. So I'm happy to be here today. So we're here to talk about electric vehicles today. And I always like to start, hold on, I did this earlier. There we go. I always like to start by asking people kind of where they are in their EV journey. So Leah, if you could put up our first official poll.
I feel like we should have Jeopardy music, Sarah. Dun, 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 dun.
Make a note of that for future virtual workshops.
Noted. Looks like we've got about 75% of folks reporting, so we'll just give it 10 more seconds or so. All right, well, with pretty good 88% of folks reporting, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling, and then I'll share the results with you in real time.
All right, so about 22% already own an electric vehicle. I think I know who some of you are who are currently attending. Hybrid vehicles, that's usually, I like to call it the gateway vehicle to an electric vehicle. Some of you have driven one and you're interested in buying one in 1 to 2 years, so you're in the right place, just starting that research. And want to learn more, but not necessarily interested. That's awesome. Maybe we'll see how you feel about it afterwards. All right. So to get us started, go. There we go. To get started, I like to kind of mention that electric vehicles are not a new concept. A lot of people think of them as new technology, but it's actually been around a long time. And I love these ads. You can see the one for the Baker Electric. It says that EVs are, that it's a silent car. And in here, I don't know if you can see it, but it says eliminates chain and chain troubles. So funny because that's a lot of the benefits of current electric vehicles too. There's less moving parts and they're very quiet. So what was true then is still true today. And even Henry Ford knew this. He said he believed the electric automobile would be the family carriage of the future. In 1914, he said that. So it makes me want to start calling my little hatchback EV the family carriage. It sounds much fancier. So now why would you drive an EV? Well, there's no tailpipe emissions for a fully electric vehicle. They're far less expensive to fuel, maintain. There's no gas or oil changes. And, you know, people don't always cite this as an important reason for buying, but they're very quick and quiet and super fun to drive. Highly recommend you test drive one if you get the chance. In fossil fuel transportation, by comparison, they do generate greenhouse gas emissions, which exacerbate climate change. They're very inefficient. People don't really think about this. You think about fuel economy and all that, but the way you power a gas vehicle is by little mini explosions in the engine, and most of that energy burns off in heat. You only get a fraction of it to really move the car. So an electric vehicle, by comparison, is far, far more efficient. There's also less runoff to worry about. There's no oil or transmission fluid in electric vehicles, so none of that is going to be washing off to the roadways and into the Puget Sound like they do with fossil fuel vehicles. And you know, this is something people don't always think about, but the fuel sources for fossil fuel vehicles actually represent national security issues. We typically import a lot of oil from other countries. And as we've all seen, we're kind of at the mercy of OPEC and what those gas prices are going to do. We see them go up and down. We kind of get used to every summer, we know gas prices go up because the demand goes up. And electric prices tend to stay pretty steady, so you're not at the mercy of that. And greenhouse gas emissions from transportation are also the largest portion of greenhouse gas emissions in the city. So that's a big one too. You can see here kind of the breakdown. That big yellow spot is transportation. So it's a huge thing for our city and a big place where we could reduce our emissions. Now, what are electric vehicles? So I don't know if you've heard some of these acronyms, but essentially breaks down to a full battery electric vehicle. So that's things like the Nissan Leaf, Teslas, those kind of cars. There's the plug-in hybrid vehicles. So these are cars that they have a battery and they can run on full electric, but they tend to have a shorter all electric range. And then from there, they're also fueled by gas. So the Chevy Volt with a V is an example of that. They do both. I think the drawback you have to think about with those is now you have the guts of a gas car and an electric car together. So you do have a lot of moving parts. You're not getting those full benefits of a full battery electric vehicle. Then there's the extended range EVs. So these are interesting. They're electric cars, but then they do have a little gas motor that recharges the battery, so it extends the range. Then there's your standard hybrid vehicle. This is not a electric vehicle as we'd normally think about it because it runs on gas. It does not plug in. But I'd like to mention these because this is, like I said, the gateway vehicle. A lot of people start out with a hybrid and they love the fuel efficiency and they're thinking about maybe going full electric and kicking gas completely. So for the purposes of today's workshop, we're going to be focusing on the full battery electric vehicle. So before I get into the next section, any questions on those? Do we have anything in the chat, Leah?
Haven't seen any questions yet. A couple folks sharing about their i3s that they drive.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks to, I believe it was Joe shared that LeMay has one of those kind of original OG electric vehicles right here in Tacoma. So thanks for that, but no questions so far.
So I'll mention that because you mentioned LeMay, my background here, you see the Tacoma Dome. This was actually at one of our last ride and drive events. We do free ride and drive events, we try to do them annually. And we partnered with a LeMay car museum to do that because they do have that, they have great electric vehicles there that you can see. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. But yeah, I liked the nice blue sky and the EVs in the background. You can kind of see all that.
Sarah, you're not sitting on the curb outside of LeMay and Tacoma Dome? If you're not familiar with Zoom, there's the ability to create virtual backgrounds, which both Sarah and Janda are using today.
I also like that it kind of smooths out my hair. So you can't see my quarantine hair right now. It looks fine. It smooths it out. So what about cost? I think a lot of people have a perception that electric vehicles are way too expensive. No way, out of my budget, can't do it. And I was one of those people too. I thought, yeah, they're really cool, but I can't afford it. That's crazy. So I looked around at used electric vehicles and I found 3 in the area that are under $10,000. So be aware of that. You don't have to buy a brand new Tesla. There are used electric vehicles on the market. And there's also a Washington state sales tax exemption, which you can use for new electric vehicles as well as used electric vehicles. So I will actually, at the end of this presentation, I have a bunch of helpful links, and there is a link to this information. So you can kind of take a look at that and all the details of how that works. There's also a federal tax credit. Now this is just for new EVs, so you can't use it on the used EVs. And not all of them qualify because it's based on how many have been sold in the US. But we have links to that information on our website, and I've also included it at the end of the presentation, so you can check that out. But you can get up to $7,500 of a tax credit on that, which is pretty good, pretty helpful.
Sarah, I do have a question that came in about the federal tax credit. Do you know if that applies to plug-in hybrids, or is it only for full battery EVs?
It is for plug-in hybrids. So if you see there's a view eligible vehicles button on the screenshot, this is on our website. And I included the link to that at the end of the presentation because that's really where you want to dive in and look up the model you're thinking about. And it will not only tell you if it's eligible, but it'll tell you at what tier it's eligible for. So 7,500 is the largest, and then it steps down to, I want to say 4,500, and then down from there. So you can kind of check that out and see if the one you're interested in qualifies.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So now what about driving an electric vehicle? So I get a lot of questions from people concerned about what is it going to do to my electric bill? And say, great, I don't pay for gas, but oh my gosh, my electric bill is totally going to go through the roof. Can't afford it. Well, we're really super fortunate because our electricity only costs about 8 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's very cheap. That's some of the cheapest electricity we have in the nation. So that equates to, this is another tool on our website, which I will do a demo of at the end if we have time. Otherwise, I do link to it. So how far does $3 get you in an EV versus a gas car? So $3 in a gas car will get you about 24 miles. Although with gas prices have gotten a little lower lately, so I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look at this again. Still pretty close though. But in an electric car, it'll get you about 115 miles, way, way further. Another way to think about that is it's about 3 cents a mile to power your car with an EV with Tacoma Power. So that's, if you're kind of curious, if Tacoma Power is your electric utility, you're kind of curious, what would it do to my bill? Think about how much you drive in a week or a month and just multiply it by 3 cents and you'll get a rough estimate of how much it'll cost you a month. Now, 3 cents is a good average. This will vary a little bit depending on the efficiency of the car, so just be aware of that. And then in the wintertime, it is a little harder on batteries, but I can tell you with my car, it's not super duper noticeable. I charged my car, well, I guess when I was driving places lately, I haven't been driving too much, but I would drive my car maybe once a week or I would charge it once a week. And in the winter, I might need to like charge it one extra time, but it wasn't like I went through 2 full batteries in 1 week. So another way to think about it is this pretty cool tool with energy.gov. It's called the eGallon, and they equate it to a gallon of gas. So I always like to update this right before my presentation. So the last time they updated it was end of March, and for Washington State, the average cost per gallon of gas was $2.87. So by comparison, that's about for eGallon, it would be like paying for 86 cents a gallon of gas. Now, this is based on Washington State averages, and the state average cost of electricity is a little bit higher than our rates. So it'll be a little bit less than that. And the other thing people sometimes don't think about is the maintenance cost. They think about the fuel and the upfront cost, but the maintenance is huge. There's no oil changes. There's no transmission in an electric car. It's all direct drive. There's no spark plugs, no gas tank, no exhaust, just not a lot of moving parts. So you don't have all that maintenance. I've had my electric car for about 1.5 years now, and the only thing I've had to do so far is put air in the tires. And I think I'm gonna need new windshield wipers before it gets raining again. But other than that, that's all I've had to do. And I'll also add too, this is an interesting observation I've had since I haven't been driving too much. I charged my car, I think last time in March, like mid-March. And I haven't had to go many places. I think I drove around the neighborhood twice and I went to the bank once. I'm still sitting at like 97% charge for my battery. So it's holding a charge remarkably well. I was really surprised by that.
Sarah, this is Leah. We have 2 questions that come in,
Yeah.
I think, related to maintenance. So first of all, I think you're going to talk about batteries here in a moment. So I'm going to hold off on Jeannie. I know you have a question about battery replacements, but I'm going to go with Joe's question first. Joe just asked, what about brakes? Can you tell us anything about EVs and their brakes?
Yes. So brakes, they have brake pads like a regular gas car. However, EVs do this really cool thing where they use the power of the car to use the engine itself or the motor itself to slow down the car because it's electric. It doesn't have gears or anything. So it can regen the battery, and at the same time, you're not using the brake pads. So the brake pads actually last a lot longer, which is pretty cool.
So
but otherwise, yeah.
That's regenerative braking, right? Joe asked.
Yes.
That's what we're referring
regenerative
to. Great.
braking. Mm-hmm. So, and I know I get to the point where I'm trying to see like how much I can save. And so I have an app for my car that'll tell me like roughly how much it's costing me. And usually it's about 3 cents a mile. Sometimes I can get it down to like 2 cents a mile. I'm really hammering on the regenerative braking because there's different settings to make it stronger or not as strong. You'll kind of see most EVs have that. So to kind of sum it up, new EVs can sometimes be more expensive up front, but they very quickly make the money back in less maintenance, less fuel costs, and there's tax breaks and there's sales tax breaks. And of course, there's used EVs on the market. And like I said, no maintenance, and it usually only costs, I mean, this really depends on how much you drive, but it's usually about 20 bucks a month in electric fuel. I live pretty close to work, so when I am driving every day, I was usually right around like $12 to $16, depending on how many extra trips I made on the weekend. So yeah, and of course you're not paying gas tax when you're filling up at the pump, but I do want to make sure people know that you do have to pay a $225 a year road usage tax offset. So that's with your car tabs. And, you know, we gotta pay taxes somehow, right? They say that's one of the things you can always count on in life is taxes. So that money goes to road repair and all that good stuff. So that is a part of it, be aware. So any questions before I talk about charging?
Yes, well, maybe I'll ask Jeannie's question here at the beginning of your charging and battery conversation, and then you can you can plug it in wherever you feel appropriate.
Perfect.
Sarah. I knew it would work. So Jeannie is asking, I heard some time ago that battery replacements were required every 5 years or so, and that they were spendy, and that the carbon trade-off was negative for the EV options in terms of the batteries going to the landfill and being hazardous waste. Has this situation improved over the years?
Okay, I'll make sure to touch on that. I could dive into it right now, but I'm going to stop myself from doing that because I have a whole battery section.
Sure, well, if you miss it, I'll remind you.
Okay. So charging, some of you may have heard about level 1, 2, and 3 charging, or DCFC. What is that? What are these things? So level 1 charging is the slowest way you can charge. However, I used it for like a year, for the first year of having my car. If you're not a big commuter, this might work just fine for you. This is just a regular outlet, so that you'd find in your house, just a regular old outlet. It's 120 volts. It can, depending on the size of your battery, it can take up to 24 hours to charge. I think my car, it was like about 16 hours to get a full charge. If you have a bigger battery, it could take more. So level 2 charging is 240 volts. And that is like, that's the standard for, so that's home or public charging. And it is basically a dryer outlet. So if you have a dryer outlet in your garage or available to plug into for your car, your house is EV ready already. My car came with a charger that had the plug on it, and it also had the adapter for the regular outlet. You can also buy those online. So all you need is an outlet to be EV ready. It was quite the wonderful upgrade when I had a level 2 240 volt charger or outlet available to me. It goes much faster now. It's very nice. Now, level 3 charging is commercial grade power service. It's 480 volts. You can't get this at your house. This is a lot of power. So they also refer to this as DCFC, that's direct current fast charging. And this can charge your battery up to 80% in about 20 or 30 minutes, so very fast. Now, the speed of your charging can also vary a little bit depending on the car. So an example, a common speed is 6.6 kilowatts, but a Tesla can charge at 7.2. So don't worry about remembering the numbers. It's just they can charge a little bit faster. So it kind of depends on the charger and the car itself, but it's such a small difference, you don't notice it too much.
Sarah, I have a question come in about the difference between the 40 AMP and the 60 AMP level 2 at home. Is it just a matter of power amp? Yeah, sorry, 40 amp and 60 amp.
They're both level 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're both level 2 charging for 240 volt. That's actually where I ran into trouble for my old place. The reason I did level 1 so long is because I did have a dryer outlet, but it was a really old building. It was built in the 50s and it was an old school outlet. And so that one was not set up. It was a different amperage from what my plug came in. And they don't really make adapters. I wouldn't recommend buying one because adapters that you might find, because they're not like standardized right now. So I was renting, so I couldn't change out the plug because it's pretty easy just to change the plug, but I was a renter, so I couldn't do that. So now that I've moved and I have my own place, I put in a plug and it's been no problem. So again, that'll affect the speed a little bit, but not too much. So charging ports. So I like to kind of show this, and again, you'll get this presentation at the end so you can dive into this. So these are what the different plugs look like. So usually I point to them. Can you guys see my cursor? I'll kind of circle. So
Yes,
this top one, cool. So this top one here, and I'll just preface this with, they have terrible names. I'm really sorry. They're not super easy to remember, but this top one is called the J1772. This is the standard. Now this part, it looks like this is what the end part looks like, and it plugs into your car. And this is pretty standardized. Like all EVs in the US should have this plug. And this can work for, now the other end of it, that's where, depending on what the plug is, you might have an adapter that will either be level 1 or 2. And you'll also see this at public chargers. Now some cars have a CCS or a J1772 double, this one says. Now this is like, I think the BMW i3 has this. So this will actually work for level 2 charging as well as fast charging. So it's not super important to know unless you're out doing public charging and you need to know which one will work for your car. But this part here, that's standard. That's level 2 charging. You should be able to plug in there. It's just the fast charging you have to know the difference. Now, CHAdeMO is the other, this is fast charger only. This is common with a lot, like I think the Leaf uses this. Chevy Bolt, I can't remember which one it uses. Usually you can filter, I'll show you a tool in a minute, but you can filter by which one you need. And then this one, I like to think of the CHAdeMO as a robot panda. That's what it looks like to me. They should rename it. And then there's the Tesla combo. So this is Tesla only. Nobody else can use it. Tesla does make an adapter so that people can use the CHAdeMO charger as well as the J1772. And my understanding is that most Teslas come from that. That's what I've heard from Tesla owners with the J1772 adapter. So they can plug into those. But Tesla can only Teslas can use Tesla chargers at this time. I think I saw a question pop up.
Yes, indeed. Why don't electric companies standardize like gas pump nozzles? You mentioned only Teslas can use Tesla chargers. Is there any movement towards standardization?
You know, it's kind of the Wild West right now. So I don't know who would standardize that, because it would have to be on the national level. So it would have to be beyond an electric utility or individual car companies. I've heard there's pushes to standardize different communication protocols. So that's just the way they communicate with each other and how cars communicate to them. I've heard like California is trying to do something like that, but I haven't heard anything about the plugs themselves. So yeah, I suspect eventually someday that is going to have to be standardized, and that's going to have to come from higher up than just state to state. It would have to be a national effort for sure, so that everybody's on the same page. So I mentioned that I was going to show you a tool to find chargers. So if you don't have charging at home, there's also a load of chargers in the area. So this is the Tacoma area. It's a snapshot from an application called PlugShare. And you can see all these green ones are level 2 chargers and all the orange ones are the fast chargers. So the cool thing is about these different charger apps is you can go in and filter by what you need. So like for my car, it uses CHAdeMO. So I don't want to look at Tesla chargers or the CCS. I don't need those. So I just look at the level 2 chargers or the CHAdeMO. So it's pretty easy to find chargers in the area if you need it. And a lot of them do trip planners too. So if you're going somewhere, you can kind of put in the address of where you're going and it'll show you chargers in the area, which is really helpful. I've gone to Portland quite a few times in my Leaf, and yeah, I kind of know where the stops are now, but it was really helpful to kind of find the chargers on the way. So as I mentioned, if you are going out of our area, there are chargers all along the highway as well. So the West Coast Electric Highway is working to put chargers all the way down the West Coast. This only shows Washington, but they actually say they have chargers now from Canada all the way down to the end of to Southern California. So you can go all the way down the West Coast with their chargers. And I think they said they're trying to have them, I think every 50 miles was the minimum of where they started. And now they're working to go east so that we can get that way as well. All right, poll. So how far do you all drive in a typical car trip? I want to hear from you guys what your range is. Non-COVID times, typical car trip, non-pandemic car trips.
I'll jump in, Sarah. I would be interested to hear, just open this up for folks in the chat too, talk about maybe how the COVID situation has changed your driving habits, and then maybe if it's changed your driving habits in a way that you intend to keep after, hopefully if and whenever the COVID crisis is managed, you know, just kind of hearing about your driving habits and how they've changed.
Yeah, great impromptu poll, impromptu question, open-ended.
I'll give about 10 more seconds here on the poll. We've got about 88% of folks participating.
All right.
And
oh, there's a lot of long commuters. Look at that. But then the second most is 5 miles or less, which is what we typically see. Then next up is 6 to 10 miles, 11 to 15, then 21 to 30, and 16 to 20. There's a lot of commuters here.
I will totally anecdotally, Sarah. We here at the City of Tacoma have just recently been doing surveys of our employees, and we have an active survey that hasn't closed yet, but I was perusing through the information this afternoon, and the average City of Tacoma employee commute was about 15 miles. So that was interesting for me to hear, and be interesting to compare that, you know, later on how that compares regionally.
Interesting. I live about 5 miles away from work, so I'm in that the least area there. Ooh. Likes to get stuck on the poles, apparently. So for those of you that commute really far, you'll be happy to hear range is getting better all the time. People are really concerned about range, and they have range anxiety is what they call it. So the newer models, they're going farther and farther, but even some of the older ones still have pretty decent range. My Leaf is a couple years old now, and it's 150 mile range, which is enough for me, works great. So I picked some kind of consumer range new EVs. So the Bolt, the Chevy Bolt now, the 2020 Bolt goes 259 miles. The 2020 Nissan Leaf Plus has a range of 226 miles. And the Model 3, this was interesting. Their range has actually gone up because they found some things out and did some more testing and tweaked a few things. So it's gone up a little bit. It's now 322 miles, and it was 310. So interesting how they can make those adjustments. And this is to give you a sample of some EV ranges for different models. This is not an exhaustive list of every EV model out there in the market right now, but they range all the way from the little tiny smart car, which is adorable. Take a look at it if you get a chance. It's so tiny. All the way up to the Tesla Model S, which is over 300 miles. And then you've kind of got all these mid-range ones. There's quite a few you can see here that are over 200 miles. Quite a few that are over 100 miles. So for those of you that are driving more than 30 miles a day, even one of these mid-range ones could work for you. Now, what about environmental impact? I think this is where we can get to Jeannie's question, because we talk about this a little bit. Oh, do we have another question before I dive in?
You know, I don't see any questions yet. I'm answering some questions in the chat, but nothing on Q&A yet.
Okay. Now, carbon in the Northwest, carbon reduction in the Northwest. So I've heard some people say, well, if you just drive an EV, you're just shifting the carbon emissions to the electricity you're using. And that can be true in states that use a lot of coal to generate electricity, but in the Northwest, we're super fortunate to be mostly on hydroelectric power, and we use a lot of wind power too. So Tacoma Power is 98% carbon free, so the electricity you're using to charge your car with Tacoma Power is 98% carbon free, almost completely. And the battery, now here's Jeannie's question. So batteries are the other thing to consider with environmental impact. And seen some interesting life cycle analysis where they compare side by side an electric vehicle with a regular gas vehicle. And they see initially the electric vehicle has a higher impact because of that battery. But it very quickly mitigates in the life of the car, because once the gas car starts being used and driven, it's generating fossil fuel emissions constantly. It's creating those carbon emissions. And the electric vehicle, nothing, no emissions once it rolls off into the market. So very quickly mitigates it, and then far surpasses the gas vehicle. I've seen that over and over again. So the batteries, now I have not heard anything about requiring replacement in 5 years. That's not the case. They're finding that they're lasting about 8 to 10 years. Now keep in mind, they're lasting 8 to 10 years, but these are batteries that were made 8 to 10 years ago. So new battery technology is much better, and they know they're going to last longer, but they don't really know how much longer. They don't really have an estimate because they haven't been out on the market yet. So they haven't been able to drive them that long. So it should be better than that. The other cool thing about them is once they kind of start winding down and they're not so good to work in a car anymore, they actually have about another 8 to 10 years of useful life with energy storage, because they don't have enough power anymore to push the car around to provide that horsepower, but they work fine for storage. I just read something recently that said they can have up to 70% of their capacity left once they've kind of been retired from the car. So car companies, because this is kind of just starting to happen, because EVs have now just been on the market long enough, they're starting to use them in interesting ways. So BMW, Hyundai, and Nissan have all started pilots to utilize EV batteries during peak times of electricity demand. So they'll charge the batteries when electricity isn't needed very much, and they'll use the electricity when it is spiking. So it kind of helps level the load, and that's great because it can help. So instead of maybe having to buy coal power on the open market, a utility could potentially just pull from some batteries. I've also heard that GM is using used batteries from the Chevy Bolt maybe it was the Volt, to back up their data servers. And I think it was Nissan in Japan is using batteries to charge streetlights. So I'm hearing about all these cool new ways to reuse them. And after that, they can be recycled. Now this is the same thing goes for laptop batteries, cell phone batteries, all those things are lithium-ion batteries. Electric car batteries, it uses a slightly different chemistry and technology, but it's still a lithium-ion battery. The difference is electric cars, obviously the battery lasts way, way longer than a laptop or phone battery. A phone battery, I mean, probably maybe 2 years before you're like, I need a replacement. And that's part of why an electric vehicle battery is heavier. You wouldn't really, which is fine for a car, not so great for a cell phone. You don't want a 20-pound cell phone. So they have to do slightly different technology for it to work in that slim design, so they don't last as long. So yeah, and the elements in these batteries are valuable, so they tend to get recycled. And a lot of the manufacturers themselves do that. I don't know offhand like how that process works, but when you need to replace your battery, you usually go through the manufacturer to do that. I've now heard there's also some third-party companies that are doing battery recycling as well. So, and just to give you context, I used to work for a tech company, and we were required to, like, the company required the recycling of all these batteries because the materials were valuable. It wasn't just being environmentally friendly, it made business sense for them to do it. So
we do have a question, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, two questions actually, if you have a moment. And this may be digging deep into kind of the life cycle analysis of batteries. But Russ would like to know, what are the other footprint issues of batteries, like the mining of the lithium? Or maybe, I guess, I'll just tack onto that question and say maybe are the trade-offs, environmental trade-offs, maybe this is a personal opinion question, worth it to you? If it may be the mining of the lithium, but you've got the emissions benefits. Maybe just talk a little bit more about kind of the life cycle, if you could.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's not exactly apples to oranges. Because if you're talking carbon emissions, they're far, far, far and away better, so much better. Now, if you're talking about environmental impacts from mining versus drilling for oil, I'm not personally sure how to compare those two because they're both, mining operations and drilling operations are both environmentally impactful. So I'm not sure if you could say which one of that part is better. One thing I will mention is that we use lithium in lots of things: cell phones, laptops, pretty much anything with a battery in it these days is a lithium-ion battery. So that's something that we'll have to think about on the global supply chain scale, and not just for EVs. It's something we have to look at beyond that.
That's a great, it's a tough question for sure. And Jeannie would also like to know, she asks, how long does a battery normally last? I think that's kind of translated into the range. It's maybe not a time, it's just a driving range, which I think you already touched on. But her second part of the question is, how much are they on average for a battery replacement?
It depends on the car and the manufacturer, usually a few $1,000s. So that's something you'd want to do research on with a particular model you're interested in. A lot of them these days offer, because car companies have gotten wise to this and they understand that this is a concern for people. So a lot of them offer warranties on the batteries for a set amount of time. And some of them even, you can replace just the cells of the battery rather than the whole battery. So they can kind of test the cells and see which ones are going bad. Not all of them do that to my knowledge, but I know some do. So that's another option that's much less expensive than doing the whole battery. And I'll talk a little bit too about kind of lifespan, like why that's a range. Besides the fact that they're different manufacturers. And I'll mention too, like replacing a battery, part of the reason it's expensive, first, it's huge. Second of all, I use this picture as a cutout to kind of show you, this is a Nissan Leaf. You can see it's in there. You can't just pop this out and put a replacement in. This is not a repair you can do yourself. They're kind of built into the frame of the car. So that's why usually you have to go to the manufacturer to get it replaced, because they have the tools for that model and they can make sure to get it swapped out, and if they do warranties, all that good stuff. So keep that in mind. But then some things that can kind of wear down your battery life. So charging habits. So if you're constantly, and this goes for little tip for cell phones and laptops too, lithium-ion batteries, the way the chemistry works, if you're constantly topping off your car, so you plug it in every single night, like, oh, I drove a little bit, it's still at 85%, I'm gonna plug it in, top it off. It's actually not good for your battery. It's sort of like a muscle, you wanna exercise it. So let it get down, maybe not too low, but when it gets down below 20%, then you wanna plug it in. Lithium-ion batteries, they're healthiest when they stay between 20 and 80%. Now, you don't have to stick to that religiously. I certainly don't, but that is kind of what helps your batteries. And the same goes for your cell phone. So you don't have to plug it in every night. It can actually prolong the life of the battery. The other thing, so heat is the enemy of batteries, right? So in our climate, we have a mild climate, it's great. We don't have to stress about that as much, but something that causes heat is fast charging. So fast charging frequently could potentially impact the lifespan of your battery. Although I've been seeing studies recently that are saying it's not impacting the battery life as much as they thought it would. But just keep in mind, like if you're thinking about DC fast charging as your only source of charging your car, that may not be a great way to go.
Great. I think that's maybe all we have. Joe did ask if you happen to know, do the Nissan Leaf, BMW, and Hyundai have a battery management system like Tesla? I'm not familiar with Tesla's battery system, but if you are.
I'm a little familiar with their battery. So I don't know if he means like a cooling system. So that's a good question, because Tesla has a system to keep the battery an optimal temperature. I believe they're water cooled. And Nissan does not do that. They call it passive cooling, which really means they don't have any kind of circulation system or anything to keep it a certain temperature. And I don't know about the other models. So that's something to look into as well, because that can help. Now in our climate, it's not as necessary. It's not as needed, but like if you lived in Arizona, that could be really, really important. You might want that.
It's a great point. Thank you, Sarah. That's all the questions we have right now.
All right. All right, so where do you go from here? Do some research. So our website is a great place to start. We have a lot of just general information. And then as I mentioned, there's links to those savings, and there's some tools. So let's see, what time is it? It's only 4:20, so we have some time to do a demonstration. So you'll get all of these links at the end after the presentation. But just to give you an overview of what they are, first is the main TPU EV website. So you can kind of go there and check everything out. Then we've got the savings calculator, which is what I'll do a demo of because people like it. It's fun. There's the EV carbon calculator, so you can kind of see how much carbon could you save by switching to an EV. And then the tax eligibility I mentioned. So if you want to see if the model you're interested in is eligible, you can click there and look it up. Then the information about the Washington State sales tax exemption is here. It's a tongue twister. And then general information, the energy.gov has a ton of information about electric vehicles and electricity as a fuel. And then this is another energy.gov link. They have a ton of cool tools. And one of them I thought was really cool was, it was like an EV comparison chart. So you could look up, like, I want to look at all EVs from this year range with, you know, maybe this driving range, all kind, like full battery, all kinds of stuff. And then you can kind of see all the stats right there. So that was a really neat way. And here's my contact information. So I think Leah's going to keep track of any questions that might come through at the end if we don't have time to answer them. But if you think of something later, feel free to email me. If you want to chat on the phone, send me your phone number. I'll give you a call. I can answer your questions. So,
yeah. Sarah, I should mention, if anybody's trying to click the links on your screen now, they won't work. Sarah is sharing her screen. But like Sarah mentioned, we will send this presentation to you afterwards, and all these links will be clickable for you.
All right. Okay, savings calculator. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer in the chat. So give me a gas vehicle, like maybe your current gas vehicle, and an EV you would like to compare it to, a model. So I need models and years for both.
All right, I'm asking for a shout out. I'll shout out the first gas vehicle I see, and I'll shout out the next, the first EV that I see.
Sounds good.
2009 Saturn Aura.
Let's see, Saturn, there you are.
And I think the first EV that I see is the 2019 Audi e-tron. That's an EV, correct?
Yes.
Great, so we're gonna compare the 2009 Saturn Aura with the 2019 Audi e-tron.
The Audi e-tron is in Avengers Endgame. I know because I just watched it with my family and I was super excited about it. And my son was not as excited, but he likes EVs.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a link to that EV savings calculator in the chat, so all of you that are typing in your vehicles can compare on your own screens.
Yes, and you'll have the link too. This is just super fun. So yes, so the Saturn, and see, it automatically autofills local gas prices too. So how far, this is like a gallon of gas. Looks like I need to update my presentation because it said $3. So how far does $2.55 drive your car? So in that Saturn, it will get you about 20 miles. In the e-tron, it will get you 70 miles. Not too bad.
Do we have time for one more, Sarah, if it's quick and easy?
Let's do it.
Let's compare the, trying to think of an older one. Let's also go with a 2009 Ford Escape compared to a BMW i4. Whatever year, maybe a 2019 BMW i4, 2020.
Ooh, there's multiple Escapes.
Ooh, pick one.
Okay, this top one. So again, this was 20 miles a gallon. It was the same as the Saturn. And then, sorry, what was the electric vehicle we're comparing?
A 2019 BMW i4. Sarah, I don't know if it's possible. Maybe it's too much work. Could you share that screen, or is that not something?
Oh, is it not sharing? It should be. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Let me look here. I think I have to change the screen. Thank you for saying that. I'm just like, look at how great it is.
Oh, no, well, thanks to someone in the chat for mentioning it to us.
Here you go. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can. You can see just what it looks like, folks.
I'm so sorry. So yes, here's what it looks like. So there's BMW i3 and the i3S. This is a lot more efficient than the Audi. So you can go 107 miles on $2.55 in the Audi versus I think it was 70 miles for the e-tron. So that's really interesting. The e-trons, although I'll say the BMW is pretty small, although it looks small, but it has really good space in the interior. My boyfriend, who's 6'6", I tasked him with sitting in every electric vehicle he could at our last ride and drive to report back to me how comfortable he was, because I get that question a lot. It's like, am I actually going to fit in one? Is it going to be comfortable? And he said that was one of the best ones, which totally shocked me because it looks small, but he said, yeah, it's totally comfortable. There's plenty of leg room. So go figure. And the e-tron kind of looks more like a crossover SUV. It's a lot bigger. So that probably contributes to the efficiency a bit. It's a lot larger of a vehicle. So do we have any questions, or do we want to do more demos?
No questions quite yet. Well, actually, we did have, right as I was speaking, we had one come in. Allie would like to know about the cost of rapid charging. What is the cost to charge your Leaf in a 480 rapid system, and how long does that take to do on a road trip?
So it's going to depend on the charger. Different charging companies charge different amounts. So that's hard to say. I can't tell you. It is more expensive. I will tell you that. They're definitely charging you for the convenience. My car, I have a smaller battery. It's a 40 kilowatt battery. So that's about 150 mile range. So it does not take me as long to fast charge as it would with a larger battery, but I get up to about 80% in like 20 minutes. So yeah. I can show you, actually, you know what? Let's do this demo. Let's go to PlugShare, because PlugShare will actually show you. Oop. It would help if I spelled things right.
You know, Sarah, as you're pulling that up, I do want to mention, I think we will have a little bit of time at the end of this presentation to do a little interactive feature. There should be, for attendees that are still on, there should be a raise hand feature, or excuse me, button down at the bottom of your screen. If you're up for it, Sarah, maybe at the end of this, we can take 2 or 3 questions verbally from attendees. We have the ability to unmute your microphones, attendees. If you're interested and comfortable, go ahead and click that raise hand button. I'll give you a heads up, and then maybe when Sarah's done, you can ask if you have a question you'd like to ask Sarah verbally. You can do that at the end as well. So just wanted to give attendees a heads up. That's an option.
All right. Trying to zoom in. There's so many charging stations, I can't see Tacoma. It's a good problem to have. Okay, so I want to show you this because this can give you a general idea of, so when you're trying to find a charger, oftentimes, not all the time, they'll show you how much it costs. So there's other apps besides PlugShare. This is just the one I'm most familiar with. So Walmart Supercenter has fast chargers, and it says the parking is actually free. Are they not charging a fee? That's interesting. I know that Tacoma Mall also has chargers, and LeMay Car Museum. So here's LeMay Car Museum. And of course, none of the ones I'm selecting show the price. Let's see. Oh, here's the Tacoma Mall one. So this one, I know this one charges, I've charged it this one, so I know it charges a fee. Okay. Well, like I said, they don't always show it on here. But I know I was looking at level 2 the other day. And it showed me some prices. So yeah, like this Walgreens, it says it's $2 an hour.
And Sarah, you mentioned this app is available on mobile phones too, right? So if you're out and about, you can have the app as well. That's handy.
Yep. So Tacoma Public Utilities, when you come pay your power bill, come say hi to us. It's $2 for every 5 hours. So yeah, you can kind of see, I think level 2, they tend to show the prices more often, but yeah, level 3 can be a little bit more expensive. I know because I drive a Leaf, I use the Nissan app too, and that also shows chargers. So that's another way. Let's see if I can think of some more, but yeah, there's a lot out there. So, but they can choose whether or not to show, how much data in these apps. So sometimes they don't show you the charging costs. Yeah. All right. Any other questions, or do you want to try the raise hand feature?
Yeah, no questions yet. No one's raised their hand, but still want to offer that if there's anybody that wants to ask a question verbally. But otherwise, we do have one question. Joe has his hand raised. Give me just a moment. Joe, if you are on a phone or a computer with a microphone, go ahead and speak and we should be able to hear you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yep,
we can.
we can hear you.
All right. I have a question about the Powerwall. And,
oh, like the Tesla Powerwall?
Yeah, well, with the Tacoma Public Utilities, using the Powerwall coupled with the AC to grid, does the Tacoma Public Utilities accept that now?
I'm not familiar with EC to grid. So I'm not sure. I mean, you could install a battery backup in your house if you like. That's, I mean, people can do that now, not even just with Tesla Powerwalls, but with any kind of large batteries.
Great, thank you, Joe. Kim has a question. Kim, I believe you're unmuted. Go ahead and ask away.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Oh, great. I haven't used this mic on my laptop.
Welcome.
I was just exploring the PlugShare. I've always used the ChargePoint app. And on my phone, I mapped a trip to Camas, Washington. And there were just a few of the, the J1772 or whatever that charger is.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't, it looked like they were just standard, like maybe level 1. And of course, if you're making a long trip, you don't want to stand around for 10 hours for your car charges. Is there a way to tell what the charges are along the way?
Yeah, so the orange and, oh, I want to make sure. So can you see my screen still?
Yes, we can.
So usually in all these different apps, they have some feature to filter. So what you see, so for me, like I'd probably filter out like Tesla, Roadster, Supercharger, this, because I just drive a Leaf, right? So I just want to see CHAdeMO and J1772. And so they, usually in these different apps, they're different colors. So in PlugShare, It is orange for fast chargers and green for the level 2 chargers.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions have come through. Those are the only two that had their hands raised, but a few more typed Q&A questions. Kurt wonders if there is app EV route planners, or what is the best app for an EV route planner? Does that exist?
You know, Google actually does it now, I've heard. I haven't used it. So I know like I can in my Nissan app, my manufacturer made app. I don't know, I'm betting Tesla does something similar, and a lot of the other manufacturers do something similar. And I've heard that, like I said, I've heard that Google Maps now has a feature will show you chargers, but I haven't checked that out yet. So I can't really give any recommendations for best, but
no worries, Sarah. If I find a link to a Google option, I'll put it in the chat for folks.
Okay.
Another question, what's the most efficient cost to charge, by the session, by the minute, or by the hour? What does it depend?
There's not really an efficient way. It's just different ways to charge. So, you know, some charging companies will charge by the kilowatt hour, but, you know, that doesn't translate to a lot of people. Like, what is a kilowatt? It's not super helpful, even though us in the utility industry were like, that totally makes sense. That's how you charge for electricity. So a lot of companies do time-based just because it's easier to understand. And it also kind of motivates people to maybe move their car. So rather than just staying there for 12 hours, you may want to move if you're paying a couple dollars an hour. So yeah, it's not really an efficiency thing. You can, if you know the speed of how fast your car charges. Like I know mine charges at 6.6 kilowatts. You could kind of do the math and figure it out. So for example, at work, at TPU, we charge $2 for every 5 hours. And doing the math, I found out it's slightly cheaper for me to charge at work than it is at home, only by a few cents, but it is slightly cheaper. So it kind of depends on how fast your car charges.
Great, thank you. And one more question before we can move into kind of our next portion, but is it possible for charged electric vehicles to feed back into a home power system when they are plugged in at home and not being used?
Yes, and a couple of things. One, I have not seen a commercially available, approved way to do this. So I don't know of like a thing you can buy off the shelf that will do it, but I've seen like electrical engineers figure it out. The other thing to think about is that is going to wear down your battery faster because you will be discharging the battery to feed your home. And then recharging your battery. So a lithium ion battery kind of they have a certain number of charge cycles estimated for their lifespan. So even if you let it go down halfway and then you charge it again and then halfway again, that's one charge cycle. So if you're going down more frequently because you're using it to charge other things, that will wear the battery out faster.
Great, thank you. Well, that's all the questions we have on Q&A right now. So if you want to hop back over to your presentation and move on to whatever you have for us next.
That was it. I had the links to give you guys resources and then demos. So I can, if people are interested in demoing, can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Let me look. I was going to... So another cool one we have is the carbon reduction. Actually, first I'll show you this because we had a lot of questions about this. The tax credits and exemption. So it's right here on this left-hand side of our main page. This is the information that I took the screenshots that were in my presentation. You can click on this. This goes to the IRS website. So you can find out information straight from the horse's mouth about that. This is the link that goes to eligible vehicles. So I'll just show you what that looks like real quick. So it looks like this. So you can look up, so they do have plug-in hybrids. It sorts it. You can go by manufacturer. So right there, say I heard someone mention the BMW. So you can look at the PEVs, the plug-in hybrids, as well as the full electric and see what it's eligible for right there.
Very
then,
cool.
Yeah. And then here's the Washington State sales tax exemption. You could find out that information as well directly from the Department of Revenue. And they actually have, I'll mention this, to be honest, this is a little confusing, but they have a phone number you can call to ask all your questions about the exemption. So I am not a good resource to answer all of these questions, but they have a resource right there for you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Well, what I'm going to do now is, if you want, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing your screen. I'm going to bring Janda back in here because we have a few more things to talk about here. Let's see. Whoops, I don't want to share my screen. Let's see here.
Oh, here, I'll stop. And then that, there you go.
There we go. Oops, here, and I will. Let's see. Well, Joe and Kim, your names are still up there even though you're on mute. I'm not sure how to get you off of there, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and start my video again. Hello, everyone. I will start Janda's video again. And Janda, you are also on unmute. So Janda, I want to open it up before folks drop off. We have one more poll that we want to give you because, like Janda mentioned at the beginning, this is an EnviroHouse workshop. We've been hosting electric vehicle workshops in partnership with TPU and the EnviroHouse for a while now, but this is the first one that we've hosted virtually. So I'm going to pop a poll up on the screen here real quick because I want to know from everyone how it went. Anything Sarah did not cover, you still have questions about. If not, please put them in the chat. How well did this virtual workshop format work for you? Thank you for your patience. I think it worked well on our end, but we want to know if it worked well for you. It was great, it was all right. And then maybe what was the most interesting or helpful topic that Sarah covered? That always helps us to improve our future presentations. So please take a quick second and fill out that poll. I'm not going to share the results of the, I mean, I certainly could, but I don't know if it would be interesting to the rest of this. Well, you know what, in spirit of transparency, I will share it at the end here, but give folks a few more minutes to fill that out. Janda, your video is still not on, but you should be able to speak. I don't know if you want to say a few more words about the EnviroHouse, how you plan to host workshops here in the future, given this kind of new normal that we find ourselves in. Anything you want to mention, Janda?
Yes, I want to make sure that everybody lets us know if there are other topics, if they're interested in seeing us do more of these. We're looking through the typical workshop list, and as many of the ones that we can do virtually, we will do, assuming that we can get the speakers to work with us. And we are also looking at doing more how-to videos with those that don't work so well in this format. If you haven't seen those before, if you go to YouTube and look up EnviroHouse how-to playlist, we have 19 videos up posted now, and we are in the process of doing some more of those. So we hope you'll join us again. If you have questions and particular topics you want to have us explore, you can send an email to ehouse@cityoftacoma.org, and we will do our best to bring those to you. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, if you have a question in the Q&A that didn't get answered, we'll be following up via email. I encourage you to check us out on Facebook and Instagram. I think TPU is at myTPU. Facebook at Tacoma Environmental Services, Tacoma EX. You can find us, Tacoma Sustainability, on all of the social medias. So check it out. And again, thank you, Sarah. Thanks so much. Thanks, Janda. Oh, I said I would share the poll results, and I will do that now. And poll. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm glad to see 100% of the 18 of you that answered said all of your questions were answered. So well done, Sarah. Thank you to those of you that said this was great. Glad to see nobody said it was not good. So thank you so much for that. And kind of interesting to see the most helpful topics, costs to own an EV and charging and battery information top that list. So well done. Thank you. If any questions come to you, you know, if you get a spark of an idea sorry, had to throw one more in there. Please let us know. Sarah would be more than happy to answer your questions. And thank you, everybody. With that, Janda or Sarah, unless you have anything else, I think we're ready to close.
Yeah, just you'll get some information emailed to you, my presentation along with a couple other handouts. And like I said, my email is in there, so please feel free to reach out to me for any other questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Have a good evening, and hope everybody's doing well. Thank you so much for joining us.